Hey folks, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. It's Sunday, the 9th of February 2014. I've been away. I've been in Marrakesh for a good week and I'm back. My soul's recharged. I've just this second, I've just recorded a couple of videos. I've just this second opened up my astrological software to see what's going on, and the moon is exactly on top of my midheaven. So great stuff. Let's go. The big feature is this Mercury retrograde that started. Now there's 4 factors of this Mercury retrograde that are ongoing in my mind with regard to how it's going to be. Certainly this is going to be a really notable one, but for a number of different reasons. There's 4 factors. First of all, Mercury is going to go retrograde back into another sign. So first of all, there's the effect of Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Then there's Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. When Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, it is conjunct Neptune. So there's Mercury conjunct Neptune. When Mercury retrogrades back into Aquarius, it is squaring Saturn for 2 weeks. So it is conjunct Neptune for 2 weeks. So factor 4, Mercury squares Saturn. So Mercury in Pisces, Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury conjunct Neptune, Mercury squares Saturn. One way of looking at this is that as Mercury moves forward into Pisces and conjuncts Neptune and stands still, an element of imagination, of potential, of creativity, but also of potential gullibility and hype. And futurism to a degree, but in a more visionary way, is being initiated, and then Mercury will step back, away from the dream of Pisces, and back into the more logical and mechanical and functional side of Aquarius, the more community-driven and humanitarian side of Aquarius, where it will bring that Piscean vision back into Aquarius, and then the square to Saturn. Now wait a minute, Mercury and Saturn, they're not too bad, they're not bad enemies, you know, they're quite comfortable with each other. Mercury is neutral in gender and Saturn can deal with it. You know, it's comfortable around structure and responsibility with communication and movement. A Mercury retrograde in Aquarius is a bit easier than Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So I suggest that what's happening now is that there's a kind of weird energy that's been around since Mercury's been in Pisces a week and a half ago. Wonderful time for me to go to Marrakesh, that has to be said. And then this energy is going to continue for another week, but now in a much more internalized status rather than externalized, because Mercury's retrograde now and it wasn't last week. Then in a week's time it goes back into Aquarius, and perhaps the dream and vision starts becoming more functional, and ideas start turning into blueprints or schedules or plans. And it might well be that as Mercury stands still at the end of February and starts going forward again, squaring Saturn, that some of these things start becoming active. The real crunch of this Mercury retrograde process won't finalise until Mercury completes its conjunction to Neptune in early Pisces, which probably won't happen until mid-March. You know, it's still a month away yet, at least. So there's no point in making grandiose plans for the big picture, because it's an element of uncertainty, not so much confusion as uncertainty as to outcome. And actually, if you think the bigger picture, Mercury conjuncting Neptune and then coming back to squaring Saturn, both for a couple of weeks each. Saturn is catching up on Neptune, and in a year, 2 years' time, there will be the Saturn-Neptune square. And it may well be that this is the start of it. So it's going to be an interesting Mercury retrograde from my perspective, but I certainly don't encourage that many of you, particularly those people born in the second half of what we got, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and the first week of Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini and Virgo. This is like the end game to stuff that in some cases has been going on for years, and in other cases just going on for a few maybe a year or two, you know, but it does seem as if this Mercury retrograde is wrapping things up. So it's an interesting time from an astrological perspective, because you can be sure that whatever's going on in the world at an external level is not going to be seen as being the fullness. It's not going to be the clarity that many people are looking for until we're into mid-March. And I'm not going to get into that one on a political level, lest I start ranting. And it might be Sunday, but I'm not doing a Sunday sermon today. It does seem, from a personal perspective, from the way I'm seeing it, both in my own experiences, and bearing in mind I've just spent a week in a very different culture, and from what I'm seeing in my clients' and friends' charts and the horoscopes that I look at, sort of 15 hours a day, normally 12 hours a day, something like that, it does seem that in many ways I'm seeing purse strings, pull strings being pulled tight. And at the same time, what seeps through is kind of going into a dreamy mist, which is slowly becoming denser and taking shape and creating a much more purified and cleansed form. And this is going to bring a much more, hopefully, cleaner but sophisticated energy into play. At the end of the day, though, folks, it's Mercury retrograde, and at the moment, it's conjunct Neptune, and it's in Pisces. So, to be honest, this is not a time for good decisions. More on this one later.